So welcome to our representation review hearings. If we could all please stand for our Ngākarakia. Te tawa mai runga,
tu tawa mai raro, tu tawa mai roto, tu tawa mai waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed via Council's Facebook page. We have apologies from Councillor Simpson. If I could have a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Mawson and Councillor Bogue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Any conflicts of interest? No announcements from myself. Any announcements by management?
None.
Excellent. So we do have some submitters joining us today, so a very warm welcome to them. And just a reminder that speakers will have 10 minutes to present and respond to questions to their submissions. And so on that note, we will head straight into those, and I would like to invite Ruth Hiriora to the front to present to us, please. Welcome, Ruth. Lovely to have you here.
Go, Ruth.
Hi, I'm very nervous. Tēnei tātou koe hui hui mai nei raro te tuanui o tēnei whare. Kia ora tātou, I am Ruth Hiriora. So I've just come in this morning to submit what I feel is important for te iwi Māori and our tangata tiriti. I believe it's prevalent that we have established Māori wards, purely for the fact that we need to honour honour the treaty, and just be in partnership with one another and to move forward, especially with the death of Tūheitia. I think kotahitanga is the way to go. Yes, and we don't want to, and I will bring it up though, but we don't want to be compared to Kaipara. I've seen every other councillors around the motu say yes to having Māori wards. And I'll just take a wee snippet from a very dear friend of mine, Robert Hepe, which is on page 88. And he states, we live in a city which is not large in area. As a community with a predominantly Māori population, I feel that Maraenui and surrounds would be better served having two Māori councillors who sit at the decision-making table. And so, for me, that is it. I hope we can move forward together, Māori, tangata tiriti together, kotahitanga. Nō reira, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ruth. Oh, and before you disappear.
Sorry, question.
Yeah, no. You may have seen that we did reaffirm our decision to establish Māori wards last Thursday, so that part of the process was done, and then this is the second part of the process as to how those Māori wards actually fit within the rest of the representation model around the council. But lovely to have you here today, and your support of Māori wards is much appreciated. Thank you.
Cool, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, and I will just quickly check if there's any questions from councillors. Any patai? No? Fabulous. Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks, Ruth.
And our next submitter is Taiatini Lipiau. Thank you. Welcome, Taiatini. Lovely to have you here with us. Kia ora.
Morena, Kirsten.
Morena.
Talawhalawa Maloni. Kia ora koutou katoa. My second time round sitting in a space like this. So it was an honour to come back again to submit my kōrero in support of Māori wards. First of all, ko taitani tēnei, no ahurere ahau. No te whakatohia, te aroa, ngā te pakia, ngā te rongomai, tūwhare toa, ngā te kaunga nui ahau. I think it's important for me to acknowledge where I come from in order to sit here and explain why I think it's important to have Māori wards. So my submission that I put through, I only wanted to do a couple of sentences, but it's quite a deep issue for me. So I'm in the community a lot, and so I see a lot. And that's around Māori issues, our social issues, as well as Pacifica. So being from Samoan Tokelau myself, being raised in Aotearoa, provides a different lens in terms of how we interact and engage with council or organisations, the government, those types of roles. And so for me, Māori Wards is important because our engagement doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit, I guess for Māori, we gather amongst ourselves, so it's hard for us to engage in organisations. There's a lot of raruraru from the past, so a lot of, I guess, things that need to be corrected. And so for some whānau, it's hard to come to these spaces and share kōrero. And then we just huddle amongst ourselves. And there are some that are speakers and some that are not. And so I want to provide that space for our whānau and to be a guiding light for many. The Māori Ward system is important to me because I have moko and I have tamariki, and I want them to sit in spaces like this. This isn't just about me, this is about our communities, our people that are out there that want better and want more. And I think by having the Māori Wards provides, and it's not just for Māori, it's just having someone there to have our cultural views shared. So we still share the social economics and everything, all the other issues that we all experience. We're there to represent everyone, but focusing on what Māori need. And I don't see it as, not even as a privilege, it's just something that should be there. But it is an honour if we are to be represented in that light. I follow quite a bit of what the council do because I'm interested and I want to know what's happening in our communities. And I love actually sharing the kaupapa that you all share out in here. So I just want to thank you all for your time. Yes, I feel in this space that our tūpuna are here, and it's very important, especially with the passing of Kingi Tu Heitia. Things are moving different for Māori, and we want to be included in the kōrero. We want a seat at the tipu. And I do understand that we do have different Māori communities and different organisations and I guess the spaces that you do provide for Māori, and I'm very, very thankful. And this is just another part to that. So I just want to add, what's good for Māori is good for all, and to share the kōrero of Kirsten. Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you.
Kia ora, kia ora. Tātini, thank you for coming to speak to us today. I will just open up for any questions. Thank you so much. We did have another couple of speakers, but it appears that they are not with us, so we will just carry on with our agenda. And I will invite Anna and Jane to come forward to present the paper to us. Welcome, ladies.
Good morning. So we're here to look at the final proposal for our representation review and consider the submissions. So today is all about considering the submissions and then making any changes if we need to the initial proposal. It's not an opportunity for blue skies thinking today. We just sort of need to stick to the submissions and the content. There's been quite a process to get here today. So we started off almost a year ago, surveying the public in November and December. We've had quite a lot of interest this time, which has been really fantastic compared to other representation reviews. So we've had over 1,000 people respond to the submissions, to the survey, sorry, and we've had a record number of submissions for the representation review. It's not typically sort of a hot topic. We had 4 submissions back in 2012, and today we're going to be considering 122. So I'd like to thank all the public who have submitted on this. It's quite a dry topic, I guess, for some people. It's quite prescriptive in terms of the legislation. There's a lot of rules that have to be followed, and it's a bit of a balancing act as well, because the components have to all add up to and comply with particular rules. So sometimes when you think, oh, I'll change this part, then that part doesn't comply anymore. So we've done quite an amount of modelling to get to this stage. So after the first survey, we went and did some modelling for council to consider. Council then sort of whittled that down to 5 that we tested with the community. It included the status quo option, or the closest to status quo, which obviously including Māori wards this time. Then the one that came back sort of with the highest support, although not a majority, was the 3-ward model. And so then council further workshopped that in terms of communities of interest. We did some further modelling to sort of see how it could be tweaked, and then presented that back to council in the initial proposal. So that's sort of how we ended up here today. Obviously we've had in parallel to this another process running on Māori wards, and that decision was finalised last week. So basically what we thought we would do is go through section by section, just to kind of make it sort of logical, but noting that, of course, any substantive changes we would need to consider as a whole. So we'd probably need to adjourn the meeting at that point, and just so we can think about how it would work or not. So without further ado, if it's all right, we'll just start to go through. We've got a bit of a presentation here as well. So as I said, we've had 122 submissions, so about 2/3 of those provided comments. Some of them was just more like a yes, no, don't know, or no answer response. There were some submissions that included out-of-scope comment or content. So there were a lot of comments about Māori wards in terms of the establishment of Māori wards, whether we should have them or whether we shouldn't have them. And there were other things too, like reducing the number of councillors in order to cut costs, things like that, where the Remuneration Authority has made clear that the representation review isn't the right forum for that discussion. That should be done through the authority. And in the paper I've detailed there's a whole raft of ones too, such as not having a mayor, and then just things like decreasing costs to ratepayers, focusing on core services, so things that were sort of out of scope. So we've sort of sectioned those off and dealt with those in a table in your paper. These results that you see up here are the overall results. So you'll see that of the 6 components, 4 have majority support from the submitters. Unsurprisingly, the citywide Māori ward one is not at majority support. Now, I'll get to that bit actually a bit later. I'll get to the technicalities. And the retaining a full ward system also didn't quite receive majority support. Right, okay, so the first one, retaining a full ward system. So although this one didn't receive majority support, as you can see, it was the most preferred. So 57 people said yes, 46 people did not agree, and 14 didn't know, and 5 didn't respond. So we had a few comments on this one, 9 comments against it, 3 comments in support, and 1 neutral comment. So obviously the key themes is sort of introducing either some or all at-large councillors. Some people said they preferred ward representation, and others, one submitter actually said that irrespective of what configuration we end up with, we actually need to work out how to make it more effective for the community. So some of the reasons, well actually the main reason given for wanting at-large councillors was that people wanted more candidates to vote for, essentially. And I just wanted to point out this is a little bit different from the reasons given in the pre-consultation. So back in November and also previously in the 2018 representation review, often submitters who had a preference for at-large councillors, one of their top reasons was, that Napier's small, we're one, we're homogenous, we don't need all ward systems, we're not diverse. But that didn't come through in this. It was really just about people wanting to vote for more people, essentially. Yep, that's probably it for now. So we are recommending as officers no change to the initial proposal. And there's some reasons, if you want to refer to page 14 and 15 in your agenda, the reasons are outlined. I'll just quickly whip through those. So basically, there are geographically based communities of interest in Napier, and we did show that in the analysis report, which informed the initial proposal. Ward-based representation in the pre-consultation round, although it didn't get majority support, it was the most preferred. And it was also the most preferred, what we've just seen in the initial proposal. When we did go out to the community with the 5 options, there were a couple of options which included at-large councillors, but those were actually the least preferred options. So the other point too, I guess, is through this whole process, working out the configuration for Māori wards, it's been identified, that the community of interest for Māori is citywide across Napier, but because we've got a Māori ward to cater for that, you don't need at-large councillors to do that. The other thing to note is that the feedback from the community is around having the same size council or smaller. And so we've got this sort of bit of juggling act with the number of Māori ward councillors. So obviously you can have 2, but you have to have a minimum of 9 general ward councillors, so that makes 11. Anything additional to that, if you're going to introduce at-large councillors, adds to the number. So there was that other aspect to take into consideration. And I guess the final thing is that, as you all are very much aware, all councillors take the same oath to act in the best interests of the city. So it doesn't matter what ward you're, or if you're an at-large councillor, you still take the same oath. So those were kind of the key points from our perspective. So we just wanted to open now for questions and then a discussion on the submissions and discussion on the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Jane. And open up for any questions from councillors. Deputy Brosnan.
Thank you very much, team, for the paper and all the work that's gone into the optioneering. It has been a long process. My question is specifically around the proposed changes in response to the submission 69 around the realignment of the central ward into the Ahuriri ward of the properties along Tamatea Drive. I'll just, through you, Mayor-wise, lay out what my concern is, and then if you could provide me your view on that. My concern is it appears to be the only boundary between wards that we're drawing in the middle of land rather than along, say, a natural boundary like a road or a green belt or something like that. So as it's proposed at the moment, it would draw a curved line, I believe, through the middle of residentially zoned land. And so if in time when that land is redeveloped, you could have this sort of arbitrary line between sections and it would become, in my mind, complicated. My question is there a reason why we've proposed to do it like that? I understand the move into the Ahuriri ward for those particular properties, but is there a reason why we couldn't follow, say, the expressway as a boundary?
So that's what we're proposing, actually. So the existing mesh block has, if you look on page 20, you can see in the second image down, the pinky line is the curved line, which was our original boundary, and that followed the mesh block boundary. What we're proposing is to split into 2, that mesh block into 2, plus a wee nudge up of the curved line, so it becomes flat, and it'll follow. So it goes along Previnson Drive
and then down where they're putting in the, they haven't done it yet, but the rest of the expressway line through that roundabout.
So just to clarify through you, Mayor Wise, so we should be following the blue line, not the purple line in the agenda?
Yeah, so the blue line is what it'll become if we follow this submitter's suggestion.
Thank you. My apologies. I thought we were following the purple line. Thank you. I think that's answered my question.
Thank
Great.
you. Any further questions regarding the retaining of the full ward system?
Just a couple of
Councillor
things through you, Madam Mayor. It was interesting reading some of the submissions that answered, and I wondered if you could, have you noticed it also? The question was, did they agree with retaining the full ward system? No. Agree to moving a 3 general ward arrangement? Yes. There were quite a few. It's like they didn't really understand the first question. Is that your take on those responses?
Through the chair, no. I think for the first question, people, particularly those who like at-large councillors, might say no, and then they might move and say, because I guess having the less wards you have, the closest it is to at-large, essentially. So, you know, someone might say, well, I prefer that we've moved from 4 wards to 3 wards, and that might be because they have a preference for a more of an at-large kind of representation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The other thing was, you said 122 responses was quite a lot. Nothing like the 2,300 we had on the Māori wards. But I think quite a few of them were focused on an out-of-scope response concerning Māori wards. So how many of those 122 do you think were basically focused on that out-of-scope issue of Māori wards?
Well, I couldn't say for sure, but I'd have to calculate it, Maxine.
But would you agree that that had a lot to do with the considerably significant number of the responses?
There was a significant number, and that's why we included those submissions in your agenda the other day, so you could have a look and see their feelings around that issue as part of that decision. Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you. Oh, I was a bit disappointed that some of the organisations, residents' organisations and Grey Power and the Labour Party and the National Party and whatever, the Taradale Association, etc., and Tai Whenua didn't actually make submissions, but maybe they were happy with what we came up with, hopefully.
Through the chair, some of those organisations did submit on the surveys, so because it's been quite a long process, I think it may have been a bit confusing for people to know that it was still it was a new round of queries.
I was wondering, Madam Mayor, if I could just sort of do a little bit of an explanation as to why we actually got a ward system in the first place in 2007, where that came from.
Yes, just a couple of minutes will be fine.
Okay. In 2006, the representation review that the council had, the council's preference was to stick with the at-large system, which had been in place for many years, and 2 groups challenged that successfully in front of the Electoral Commission in 2007 because they represented communities of interest who they felt were not represented, hadn't been represented on council. One of them was the Maraenui Community Council Trust that I was involved in at the time. The other was the Taradale District Association, who complained that most, if not all of most of the councillors actually lived on the hill, and they had not had a councillor representing Taradale for some time. So they made their case, we made our case successfully that those communities of interest were not represented in the at-large system, and that's how we got the ward system. It was the decision, the determination was that a part ward system was what had been proposed. You know, part at-large and ward system, but that's the origins of why we have a ward system now, to ensure representation of particular communities of interest that the at-large system in 2006 and prior to that had not been represented.
Thank you, Councillor Bogue. Any further questions on retaining a full ward system or any general discussion on the officer's recommendation to proceed with the full ward system? Councillor Gregg.
Oh yes, through the Mayor. Just a question. When does it become legally binding that this final proposal that we have goes through?
It'll be in place for the 2025 election. Yeah, so there's a bit of a process for us to go through once all of this is finalised. Yeah, so that's when it starts.
Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Bit of a weird question, but sorry, bear with. You've referenced the fact that it's taken almost a year to go through this process. It's a really complex one, and we have gone out to the community multiple times on it. Aside from that, we go out to the community multiple times for other consultations, etc. What tools do we have to be able to feed back to the Local Government Commission about their processes, and how can we work with them better to help our communities understand processes like this and why they should engage and what it actually means for them? Is that something that we can do?
The Local Government Commission, through the Chair, the Local Government Commission are working to the Act. So it's really the legislation that makes the process quite prescribed and complicated. And there's lots of little nuances like the Māori wards and the formulas that we have to use. They have been a really helpful support for us through this process, actually, but are always happy to receive feedback from us. So we can always have sort of a debrief with them once the process is over for them to then feedback to who they report to.
And I guess through the Chair, it was our decision to go out to the community in the pre-consultation. So that's a decision for councils to make. The Local Government Commission highly recommends for councils to do pre-consultation. And this time we have done 2 lots of pre-consultation. We started broad and then went down to options, whether or not that's the most effective way to do it. Next time we can consider that, whether or not we go straight to options, I don't know, we'll do a mix of both in one survey. But we can look at all of that and I guess the lessons learnt part that we'll be doing and to inform the next one.
Great. Yeah, I think that it is important that we do the lessons learned, and it's great to hear that they have been a support. I know that you've referenced the feedback that they've provided you guys with as officers. I think we're just being asked to be far more cognizant of how we engage with our community and the purpose and trying to deliver more effective ways of getting capturing our community's voice so that we can consider it. So, yeah, I just wanted to flag that I do think it's important, especially when it comes to processes like this.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Bogue.
Sorry, another comment through you, Madam Chair. I'm concerned about the name of the ward Ahuriri because it stretches from Awatoto right through to Bayview, basically, over the hill, Napier South and the Hill and Ahuriri, etc. Ahuriri not only is the name of a suburb, so that will cause some confusion, but it is also the name that we call, it's the Māori name for Napier. So when people say they live in the Ahuriri ward, Ahuriri has got so many different meanings, and I'm quite concerned, as I think the Youth Council submission pointed out, that there will be confusion about, why are we using the name of our city as one of the wards that only represent, a third of the population.
Is this just a comment at this stage?
Yes, it's a comment, yes, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know if anything can be done about it, but it is a concern that I've got, and I share the concern expressed by the Youth Council.
We will, through the chair, we will get to the board names a bit later in the process, so maybe we can unpack that a bit at that point, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So anything further about retaining a full ward system? And any discussion on the officer's recommendation? Okay, so we'll move forward to the next part of the resolution.
Thank you. So the next one is around moving to 3 general wards. So prior to the 2021 decision to establish Māori wards in Napier, we've had 4 wards. And then with the introduction of Māori wards, we then, or Māori ward as the case is, we then call the other wards general wards. So we've still got 4 wards, but we've got 3 general wards and 1 Māori ward now. So this question's asking around are people happy with moving to 3 general wards? So as you can see, 66% of people agreed. There were 5 comments against, 2 comments in support. So the comments, I'll just say the comment in support actually, were around the submitters like the even split of councillors between the 3 wards. The comments against, so there were a couple of comments about the Napier Central ward covering too many communities of interest. There was 1 comment around Ahuriri ward, including communities of interest that don't fit. 1 comment around we should have smaller wards. And then there was the specific boundary request that Councillor Brosnan mentioned before around moving the 5 houses and church along Tamatea Drive into the same ward as Parklands Estate. So that, we've probably gone through this already. That's just the map to show what it is currently and then what it is proposed to be. And then the next map is showing the 3 ward map, 3 general wards. And then the next table is showing, there's just a slight difference from the initial proposal, which is a stats estimate of 50 people have changed from 1 ward to another, so it's very minor, but we've just put up the figures there so you can see that.
Sorry, through the chair, just clarifying, I think stats can only work in 50 people blocks, so although it's only 5 houses in the church that we're proposing to move into the other ward, they round that up to 50 people.
And then the officer's recommendation is to continue with moving to 3 general wards with a minor boundary adjustment and to update the initial proposal. So the rationale is that the 3 wards broadly cater for communities of interest. The introduction of Māori ward councillors will provide representation to Māori across Napier, including areas with high percentage of Māori residents, such as Maraenui. 3 wards enables the same number of councillors for each general ward. And the slight boundary adjustment at the submitter's request is around those residents sharing similar interests and socio-economic statistics with the residents in Parklands. So move to questions.
Any questions? I think this has been very well traversed. Excellent. Moving forward. So officer's recommendation, any questions with regards to that or further discussion?
Cool. So the next one is general ward names. So 67% of people agreed with the general ward names. There were 3 comments against and 0 comments in support. So the key themes, 2 comment submitters commented around the Napier Central General Ward name. 1 person thought it was confusing and the other person thought it was unimaginative. And the Ahuriri General Ward name, as Councillor Bogue has referenced before, the Youth Council didn't think it was appropriate. So the office's recommendation is no change to the initial proposal. There are names that were considered by council in the initial proposal. So that's in your council report on page 22 and 23, if you want to have a look at those ward names. So regarding the Napier Central General Ward, this name provides a neutral name to designate the area of Napier the ward covers. Most residents will be unfamiliar with the statistical area unit called Napier Central, and so won't be confused by it not being included in the Napier Central General Ward. Regarding the Ahuriri General Ward, this name is the Māori name for the whole of Napier, and does also refer to the suburb, of course. Ahuriri Ward is the name of one of our current wards. This ward has essentially been expanded to include some other areas of Napier. It's the largest landmass of the wards compared with the other general wards, and as such, we feel that it's the most fitting to be called Ahuriri. And there is some other ones that were considered, but they were discounted. Irrespective of what names are chosen, we will run a ward awareness campaign once the wards are set, so that residents will have a chance to learn what the new wards are.
Could I ask a question about that, please? If somebody came up with a better name after this has gone through, what would be the process to change the name?
Through the chair, if the person has made a submission on the initial proposal, they can lodge an appeal. If there is a change from the initial proposal to the final proposal, then anyone can lodge an objection. And then the objections and appeals, if any, are forwarded to the Local Government Commission, and then the Local Government Commission would consider those and possibly hold a hearing early next year to consider those matters. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. So just to tease that out a little bit further, so essentially there's no process outside of the representation review process in which you can change a ward name.
No, absolutely not.
Thank
No.
you. Councillor Mawson.
Just through the chair, would you have a ballpark figure how much that would cost and who would pay for that, please, if that were to happen?
Through the chair, are you referencing to the appeals process, or well, there's no further cost to council. It's council. What happens is members of the public would lodge their appeals and objections with us, and then we collate them and we forward them to the Local Government Commission. And then the Local Government Commission take over from that point. They look through each, they consider are they in scope or not, and then they consider whether they need to have a hearing or whether they've got sufficient information on paper to make a determination.
And through the chair, just if there is a hearing, they generally either come to the town or they do it virtually, so there's no travel costs or anything.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Crown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note in the report that our youth councillors also provided us with some feedback on the Te Whanga name of the ward as well, with some concerns around the appropriateness for that. Te Waka Rangipu provided some guidance around it. I was wondering, were they asked, I remember them being a part of our workshop process, Te Waka Rangipu. I don't remember them highlighting to us any concern around Ahuriri at that stage, but were they asked in response to the feedback that was given around Ahuriri at this stage?
Through the chair, who do you want to respond to that?
I can recall that we went through that process, yes, that's correct, but with the name Ahuriri, we also put a name Mataruahau as our peak of Ahuriri that looks for the all distance. So, but finalising that decision, I don't remember being part of that.
May I ask a question of clarity? Thank you. Thank you, Morihu. I'm wondering, do you have any concerns from a cultural perspective with the name Ahuriri ward in this instance?
No.
Thank you.
Any further questions? or general discussion? And I guess that the naming of the Ahuriri ward has, I think, been one of the more challenging parts of this process. It has been raised that there is potentially confusion. I would highlight that we've always had an Ahuriri ward historically, so I think people understand, or the people that understand our ward system understand the difference between it there being a ward and it being the Tareo name for the whole of the city. We've struggled to have anything else come through for consideration. Certainly welcome anyone that's made a submission if they have a wonderful idea to work through the objection process and suggest it to us. But I think at this point in time, from my perspective, I can't think of anything else or anything better, but welcome others' thoughts on it. Take that as a general consensus that we all agree with the officer's recommendation that the current ward names are the way to proceed forward. Thank you. On to the next part.
So our next section is on a citywide Māori ward with 2 councillors. So just to point out here that what's in scope in the representation review is the configuration. So the configuration here is 1 citywide Māori ward and with 2 councillors, and also the name is also in scope. Whether or not to establish them is not in scope because that decision was a precursor decision to the representation review made in 2021 and then reaffirmed last week by council. So as you can see here, these figures may not be wholly representative of people who were understanding that this is only about the configuration. It wasn't whether or not we established them or not. So as you can see, 52% disagreed with that. So there was only 1 comment against, which was about the name, and there were 7 comments in support. So the comments in support were really around, that the citywide Māori ward caters for Māori as a community of interest. One submitter was supportive but wanted to know if Māori supported this, what were Māori views on it, which we've had all of our feedback, I think, from Māori, from stakeholders and participants in our surveys and things has been in support of the citywide Māori ward and with 2 councillors. And so the submission around the name was that it should be written out in full, so as opposed to instead of te whanga. So we are recommending as officers no change to the initial proposal on the basis that no submitters actually submitted against the configuration of 1 citywide Māori ward with 2 councillors. They expressed support for the 1 citywide Māori ward to cover Māori as a community of interest, and Te Whanga is considered an appropriate name by Māori stakeholders, and our Te Waka Rangipu team, as we've just heard from. We've also, the Ngā Manukunuka o Te Iwi Committee also endorsed it. They did want to get endorsement from the Kāhui Komatua group, but that group hasn't met since that time. And since then, we've also heard that Te Tai Whenua o Te Whanganui o Rotu have endorsed the name. So, any questions?
Yes. Could I assume that the 63 submitters who voted against this particular question out of 122 were voting against Māori wards in general, not against this particular configuration?
Through the chair, yes, predominantly yes. We just had that the comment against from the Youth Council, not against the actual ward, but against the name.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, and officer's recommendation, any general discussion? Right, moving on.
Cool. Right, council size. So submitters were asked, do they agree with 11 councillors plus the mayor? So obviously a reduction from 12, and 65% agreed with that. And we had 3 comments against and 1 comment in support. A couple of the themes were we should have a particular number of councillors to avoid a stalemate around the council table. And should be less councillors. So one submitter thought Napier doesn't warrant such a large size. They used an example comparing us to Tauranga. So the office's recommendation is no change to the initial proposal. The reasons are there is actually existing mechanisms and standing orders to deal with the 50-50 split vote. 11 councillors is not a significant departure from the current size of 12. If we were going to look at retaining the 3 general ward system and we wanted an even number of councillors between them, and we tried to reduce the total size of council, it would be a significant change to the initial proposal. And a council size of 11 is not dissimilar to other councils around New Zealand of a similar size.
Open up for questions.
So I've got a question, me again. Did many focus on the misunderstanding that this would actually be cheaper for the ratepayer having a smaller council?
Through the chair, yes. So in the table at the start of your report, and out of scope, we've included the submissions that referenced wanting a smaller size for cost-saving purposes. One submitter also was keen to reduce the number of councillors so that everyone could get paid more, and therefore it would be a more attractive proposition for people to stand for council. But the Remuneration Authority in recent determinations has made clear that the representation review is not the avenue to be looking at those considerations. That needs to be done outside of a representation review.
So just further question, do you think that was a significant factor in people saying that they wanted a smaller council, the ones that said yes?
Through the chair, I can only go on the comments that were received, and there were, hang on, let's have a look. So 32 people disagreed with the reduction of the councillors. 79 people agreed, but we didn't get anywhere near those figures in terms of the people that commented. So as you can see, there were 3 comments against, 1 comment in support, and then if you refer to the table,
Page 28.
oh, the table right at the front, the out-of-scope table, there's a handful in there. Yeah, so I can't speak to what people were thinking if they haven't provided further comment.
Page 10 is where that table is.
Any further questions on council size or any discussion on the recommendation to proceed with the initial proposal? Okay.
Right, and our last section is no community board, so not establishing a community board in Maraenui. So people were asked if they were agreed with that statement. So 54% of people did. Sorry. So we had 4 comments against and 2 comments in support. So the key themes were that we don't need a community board in Maraenui, that there should be a community board in Maraenui, and the other was that there should be community boards elsewhere in Napier. So for not establishing a community board in Maraenui, like one of the speakers before me mentioned, one of the submitters talked about Maraenui will be better represented by having 2 Māori ward councillors who can actually make decisions at the council table. And also for not establishing it, a couple of submitters referenced the cost associated with establishing a community board. So against, a couple of submitters thought that a community board in Maraenui would help residents' voice to be heard. And then a couple of other residents thought, well, if Maraenui has a community board, there should be a community board in Taradale and or elsewhere across Napier. So the officer's recommendation is no change to the initial proposal. So not establishing a community board in Maraenui at this time or anywhere else in Napier. And the reasons are there's limited support across the community for establishing a community board in Maraenui. It was approximately 30% support, while there was higher support in Maraenui, around 54%. The introduction of 2 Māori ward councillors will help provide representation of Māori in Maraenui. And there are other ways council can seek to improve representation outcomes in Maraenui. So officers recommend that a plan is put to improve representation in Maraenui for council's consideration. And some of those points are outlined on page 32, including things like a dedicated councillor portfolio, targeted vote campaign, different things like that. So we could work that up and bring that back to you for consideration, possibly during part of the annual plan process.
Thank you. Open up for any questions on no community board in Maraenui. Any discussion on the officer's recommendation? Very good. Okay, so that's brought us to the end of working through those individual areas. There's been no changes raised during discussion for the current resolution we have in front of us. I see you've still got something to talk through here.
Oh, that was just only if anyone wanted to know what happens next.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So I would ask Carolyn if you could just pop the resolution up. We do have a very extensive resolution. It's very prescriptive under the Act what we have to cover off. So I'm sure you are all very familiar with it, having read through your papers. And essentially, thank you to Jane and Anna for sort of chunking that down in the way that you presented that to us for questions and discussion today, because I think that made it a really clear process for us to navigate our way through the various parts of the resolution that we needed to debate and make a decision on today. So before I ask for a mover and seconder, I will just open up if there is any general discussion or any last questions before I ask that someone moves and seconds the officer's recommendation before us. Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Just to back you up on those comments about it's been a long, hard road for you guys. So just, yeah, thanks very much. You've done an amazing job.
Thanks. Okay. Councillor Brown.
Just to say, there was a mention around lessons learned in the process earlier, and I just, from our decision-making process, I'd just like to say that I really enjoyed the fact that we went really wide to start with, and we got the flavour of the community, and then we narrowed it in, and it felt really helpful. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bogue.
Yes, I'd just like to thank the staff for all your work in putting this together and going out and collecting feedback. Really appreciate it. When the final map comes out, I just wondered if you could put the names of roads on it so it's easy to see, very clear where those boundaries are, because it was a bit hard to read just from the map that we already had. So thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I will ask for a mover and seconder, please. I'm happy to move from the chair, seconded by Councillor Price. Thank you. And just to add to the comments that have already been made, this has been a very, very extensive process with some great engagement from our community. I think we're well traversed in this now, and yeah, I am confident that we have put forward this representation model which will serve our community well. There are some changes in there from what we have had previously, but we've done the work to arrive at the resolution that we will be voting on today. So thank you to all the staff involved, and thank you to those members of our community who have engaged in the process. Councillor Price, did you wish to speak?
I think that a job well done, and I think that today there wasn't a lot of debate. We're pretty unanimous on our views, and that's because of the work you put in. You've gone out to the community, come back with options, and we're well aware of where we're at. I guess I'll give one plug for Ahuriri Ward, in that it has been that for a long time, and I don't know where you draw a line and take it away. Very difficult. And I understand what Councillor Bogue's saying, if someone came up with a better option, but from my experience, arguing or debating names of places can be a long process. But well done, and yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Open up for any councillors who wish to speak. Councillor Bogue.
Yes, I would like to speak in support of the officer's recommendation. I'm really thrilled that the community and this council is fully in support of a full ward system. We've tried it out now for 17 years, and I think it's worn the test of time. It was very controversial when it came in, as far as the council was concerned, and I think it's given us an area that we have been able to connect with and provided better representation, I feel, for our council, our constituents, even though we are still responsible for an overview of the whole city. The community board, I'm glad that we went out and actually consulted on that. It was a recommendation of the Local Government Commission, I think, in a couple of determinations for us to look at it. With the institution, the instigation of Māori wards, does change the situation for Marae Nui, but who knows when the next representation review is taken, whether we will still have Māori wards or not, or how that's actually panned out will influence perhaps whether that community board for Marae Nui is going to be reconsidered or not. But on the whole, as I said, thank you, staff, and I'm really pleased that we did a tweaking of the ward system, and we'll come up, hopefully, with something that will continue to provide, excellent representation for our people of Napier.
Thank you, Councillor Bogue. We've had 3 speak in support. Are there any elected member who would like to speak against? No? Councillor McGrath.
Through the Chair, I'm not going to speak against. I'm going to abstain due to the fact of the interrelatedness of last week's meeting and today, and I wasn't here last week, so I don't believe I've got the full information to make the decision.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Okay, so that being the end of the discussion, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? And 1 abstention from Councillor McGrath. So that is carried. Fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Jane and Anna in particular. I'm sure you are pleased that we have reached a decision today. And now we move forward into the next part of the process. So if we could all please stand for our closing karakia.
Kia tātou te rangi Māori, ki runga i ngā iwi katoa, kia piki te ora, te kaha me te māramatanga, i ngā wā katoa, ti hei Māori ora.
Thank you, everyone.